You're listening to the Travis Makes Money podcast presented by GoHighLevel.com. For a free 30-day trial of the best all-in-one digital marketing software tool on the planet, just go to GoHighLevel.com/Travis. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Travis Makes Money podcast, where it's our mission to help you make more money this year. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about financial planning, financial services, and all of that stuff with my new friend, Trey Peterson. Trey, what's up, dude? Welcome to the show.
Travis, great to be with you.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for taking the time to come out of your Vegas schedule to sit down and have a conversation.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
What are you in town for?
Man, I flew in to see a friend.
Okay.
Do this, fly in, fly out, at home, teach a mastermind. So life is good.
Sweet. So you're taking off soon then?
Tonight.
Wow. Okay. Where's home for you?
Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Minneapolis, Minnesota. How's it being up there?
Man, we've had negative 15, negative 16 degree weather, and I've really been praying about how long I'm going to stay in Minnesota.
I was going to let you know, bro. You know, you can go other places.
Let me tell you, our June,
There's
July,
houses here. Yeah.
Our June, July, and August would change your life, though.
That's probably, you know what? You're very right about that. You should keep the place there and then just stay here the majority of the year. Go back there because it's pretty terrible July and August.
I like that
in
plan.
Vegas. Yeah. It is not fun. Well, thanks for doing this, man. Let's start off with kind of softball question here. Tell me how you made your first dollar ever, and then tell me how you made your most recent dollar.
Yeah. So, you talk to anybody that's 12 to 17, whatever that junior high to high school age is. And I think if you ask an athlete, so I was a football, wrestler, rugby player, everybody wants to be a pro athlete. And I grew up in a family, my parents did nonprofit ministry work and then some real estate. And I always just wanted to be in the real estate game or something related to that. And my first introduction was actually to the network marketing world. So I'm not in that world today, but that's where I made my first dollar, which was
company.
Amway, man.
Amway.
The big old Amway. Amway was a great introduction to personal development.
Yes.
I made my first dollar there, but not a lot more.
You know what? Yeah, exactly. You and everybody else. Yeah. It's so funny, man, because I was in my fair share of network marketing companies coming up as well. But you did say one thing there that I will give the network marketing space, and that is the introduction to personal development.
Absolutely.
Jim Rohn is still one of my favorites. And he was like the guy in that space. He was like the case study that they used to be like, look, network marketing's awesome. You can have an actual career outside of this, because he was kind of their flagship guy. But his stuff still holds true to this day. Like the principles that he talks about, I'll still pop on some Jim Rohn sometimes, like on a long drive or something.
For sure.
Because he's got some great just self-development, personal things that we should all be following.
Yeah. Well, my takeaway from network marketing was the key is personal development. Keep growing, keep developing. And like you have got a lot of 6- and 7-figure friends that their introduction to success was a network marketing company. So it's played a role.
I typically see the people who vilify the entire space always and constantly are people who were afforded more options growing up. Like they had parents who were traditionally educated and they had a great education themselves and they were able to go to a great school and they were able to get a decent job out of school. And it's easy for the kind of that crowd to point fingers and be like, you scam artists, you know what I mean?
100%.
But I think there's a lot of network marketers that are just doing it because like they don't know what else to do. Like they have zero skills, they have no education, they're high school dropouts or, went to a half a year at junior college or something like that. And they're like working some unskilled labor job for $11 an hour. And then they see an opportunity to make 50 grand and they're like, oh my gosh, this is life-changing and crazy.
100%.
So I think it has a place, man. I think that some of those companies, keyword being some, actually do some good work. There are several that are terrible and deserve to get sued by the FTC.
Right.
Just
like anything else.
Just like anything else. Exactly.
What I would say though is whatever you do, I think the biggest problem is that people get stuck in it. So it's kind of like people will say, what percentage of people are successful in network marketing? And I'll say, well, what percentage of people that get a real estate license are successful in real estate?
Right.
So the biggest thing is whatever you do in life, spend 6 months or a year and say, here's what great looks like. Here's what good looks like. Here's what it is not working looks like. And just because it's working for somebody else doesn't mean it's your financial vehicle.
Yeah. And always figure out a way to get out of the space.
Whatever you're doing
into something else.
Right.
I literally just had this conversation with somebody, bro, probably this had to be 4 or 5 months ago because she was a friend of mine who from college, and it was probably 6 or 7 years ago that she started doing really well in a network marketing company.
Yeah.
And I was out of that space completely and I was in podcasting and trying to work on some, quote unquote real businesses. And she jumped on a call with me, and I was like, cool, everything's going well right now. But I was like, please do me a favor. Do things outside of this.
Yeah,
Like
don't
diversifying
just
your
do
income
this.
stream. Yes.
It's one of the only industries that a lot of the uplines will say this is the only way to make money.
Yeah.
And whatever you do, if somebody says this is the only way, run.
Yep.
Right?
It's completely incorrect. And
lot of ways to make money.
They have something that they're gaining from giving you that advice.
Right.
Because it's just objectively incorrect. So you get that advice, you know that like this person's
them.
looking out for them. They're not looking out for my best interest. So I had this conversation with her. I was like, you gotta do something besides this. And it's funny because a few years later, this was again a few months back, the company ended up shutting down.
Yeah.
And there goes the income overnight.
Right.
And she had messaged me and she was like, hey, I just want to say thank you for telling me that, because I ended up doing all these other things. And now I'm still making money doing all the other things that I was doing outside of that company.
Yeah.
And she was like, I have to tell you though, I was offended when you first said it, because I like in that world, you drink the Kool-Aid, bro.
Well, they teach you, right?
Yeah.
If your friends don't support your business,
yeah, exactly.
they're not your friend.
Exactly. they make you drink the Kool-Aid, which is really my biggest problem with that space and any of those types of spaces.
Yeah.
Like, if you got this one way or the highway mentality, again, it's objectively not true, and there's complete bias behind the advice. And I get ick cult vibes from those types of things. I'm like, I'm done. I'm gone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if you can still leverage some of those things, make a good income, learn skills like marketing and sales and things like that, and then apply those outside of that space to be able to then exit, then it could be a really good way to potentially get started making a little bit of extra cash.
Yeah. I mean, my summary of network marketing is it taught me how to dream. It gave me a passion for helping other people. Some of the best people I've ever met are in network marketing because they care about other people more than they care about money, but don't just get stuck in that alone.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, dude, that was your first dollar.
That was my first dollar.
What was your most recent dollar? How do you make money now?
You know what? I'll just say this really quick. So right out of school, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And because of network marketing, I knew that I wanted to control my time. I wanted to control my income. Jumped into commercial insurance because I was chasing somebody that had the income that I wanted and the time I wanted. And really my first big life lesson is that you can't chase the fruit somebody else has. You have to chase the process. And so one of the keys I tell everybody is find something that if everything paid the same, if I gave you 20 grand a month and the only rule was you had to spend 45, 50 hours a week doing something, what would you do? That's what you should do. So for me, my passion is helping people win with their finances and in life, because I've found is if you're winning in your money, what are you not winning in? Now, obviously, your marriage could be bad, your kids could be bad, but if you do it right, if you win with your money, you can design your life, control your time, and you can win in every area. And one of the things I just say is, I always say, if you want to know how successful an entrepreneur is, look to see how happy his wife is. Because a lot of times, the most miserable people in the world are the wives of an entrepreneur because the life of a roller coaster.
Yeah, absolutely. We sign off this show, every single show, I sign off with saying, and you'll hear me say it at the end of this one, I say, remember, money only solves your money problems.
Right.
But it is a little bit easier to solve the other problems if you got money in the bank. If you don't have the stress of in the anxiety of worrying about where your next meal is coming from, or if you're going to be able to make rent this month,
right.
It's a little bit easier to start diving into some of the other things that you got going on, some of the mental health issues or some relationship problems. It's much easier to fix a relationship with your wife when you have time and you have freedom to be able to do so,
100%.
Rather than like, I'm worried about my relationship with my wife, I'm worried about my relationship with my kids, and I don't know how I'm going to pay rent this month. That's a bad situation to be in.
I think too, as a man, I don't know if all women feel this way. I think maybe some strong women do, but as a man, we feel like it's our job to provide, right?
Yeah.
And if we're not providing,
it's a biological thing.
It's inside of us,
hardwired into us.
Oh man!
Yeah.
But if we're not winning in our money, it's really difficult to be present anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. It is. Yeah. It's something that's always on your mind.
Yeah.
You know, when you can't. When you tell your kids that you can't do something, and the only barrier to that thing is money, it just makes you go, ah.
You know what
damn.
I'm thankful for? So my parents were pastors.
Okay.
So there was a lot of things that we couldn't afford. But my parents never told us that we couldn't afford something. Here's what they would say. They would say, words are powerful.
Yeah.
Don't ever say you can't afford something. Instead, say, son or daughter, I love that that's a dream of yours. I love that you want to have that. We're not going to do that yet, but put it on your dream board.
Yeah.
Write it down. because someday I'm going to make that happen for you. So one of the things I just say to people that can't afford things is words are powerful.
Yeah.
The world was created with words. Make the decision that your kids are never going to hear from your mouth, we can't afford it.
I love that. Yeah. Words are powerful, and your kids will internalize those things. Those thoughts will become their beliefs and will turn into their behavior patterns as well.
Right.
And is making sure that even if it's like, somebody that's a pastor or pursuing something in the nonprofit space or,
Right.
Philanthropy is kind of their thing or whatever. The overarching perspective there is that like, that is something that is possible, but it's not something that we've chosen.
Right.
We've chosen this path.
Right.
This path doesn't allow us to fly in a private jet.
Right.
This path doesn't allow us to like do these things that you're asking us to do. And of course, your kids aren't asking to fly in a private jet, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But to frame it as a choice, and that neither choice is bad nor good. But if that's what you want, then you need to make that choice for yourself.
Right.
But that's not one that we're going to be able to sustain for you.
Right.
I think that's a great reframe.
Well, I think too, we live in a world that if you jump on social media, everybody is saying that the highest calling is to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And
it's glorified these days.
It
for
is
sure.
so glorified. And I so respect, I have a friend 3 years ago. He left his 6-figure safe job, started a business. Travis, for the first time, I've never seen anybody do this. About 6 months in, he posted on Facebook. He said, I tried being an entrepreneur. I thought it was the dream. I was miserable. I hated thinking about payroll. My wife couldn't stand that I couldn't sleep at night. And he said, I just have to tell the world I took a job and I couldn't be more excited to be back on a W-2.
Yeah.
So one of the hands,
right? Yeah, right, exactly.
Man.
It's the clarity of realizing what you want.
Right.
And pursuing that path relentlessly.
And what your skill set is.
Yeah.
If you study entrepreneurs and who's successful, only 4% of people are designed for that life. 4%. I think one of the things I'd say around money too, is I always ask people, when you hear the word money, is it a positive or a negative word? I think one of the responsibilities that we have as men is to make sure that our kids grow up with it being a positive word.
They're literate. In the language of money. Yeah.
Right. And I would say it's not our job to be rich. It's our job to be stable. Because if we raise our kids in a stable home where maybe they can't have the jet, or maybe we're not going to Disney World every year, but they don't hear mom and dad fighting about money. They don't wonder if we're going to be able to stay in our house. To me, that's a stable home. And one of the things I think a lot of people miss is they're shooting to get rich and they miss focusing on being stable.
Yeah. And some people are chasing the rich aspect because they think that that's the goal that they should have.
Right.
Not because it's the goal that they actually do have.
Right.
Which is the problem that I have is that, there tends to be these polarizing sides, which we kind of talked about before we hit the record button, where you have like the Ramsey tribe that's like save, cut. And then you have the, 10X side that's like, if you're not going for $1 billion, you're selfish.
Don't even buy a house.
Whoa. Hey, hang on a second. You know what I mean? There's probably, this is not a one size fits all thing. It's just like health. If you're if you're following an influencer in the health space and all they do all the time is preach keto, probably don't listen to them that much, because it's not there's no one size fits all diet.
Right.
There's no one size fits all lifestyle. There's no one size fits all budget.
Right.
You have to, the bummer part of that is that you're going to have to do some work. You're going to have to do some work to figure out what it is for you. Yeah. Even as it relates to the diet side.
Right.
You can get on that treadmill over and over and over again, and you can enroll in this 6-week challenge and this 75-day thing and this 7-day thing. But eventually you're going to have to figure out what works for me. Right. What's the lifestyle health-wise that I can sustain where I feel good, I have mental clarity, I get enough sleep, I'm drinking the water that I need to drink, I'm going for a walk. Like, what does that look like for you? Yeah. Some people that might look like I spend 3 hours a day in the gym lifting weights because I love having a lot of muscle on me. Right. Some people that might look like I go for a walk every day and I do strength training twice a week, and I make sure that I prioritize protein. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to look different for everybody. Don't apologize for what you want out of life if you have the clarity that you want that thing.
Right. Well, to answer your question, so today I do retirement planning.
Yeah.
So my business partner, Yelase Kutz, and I, we do fiduciary financial advising, taxes, and insurance. Okay. So we work with people in and nearing retirement. We've got a small private wealth firm out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Recently just launched one in Frisco, Texas, just north of Dallas.
Oh yeah, I love Frisco.
And then in the leadership and coaching business. But
yeah. So
that's what I do now.
So before you jumped into that space, what was the trigger that prompted you to move in that direction?
So like I was sharing with you earlier, when I was in college, I had somebody that I looked up to that he was working like 30 hours a week. He was making like $350,000 a year. And he said, Trey, what do you want to do with your life? And I said, I don't know what I want to do, but I want to control my time. I want to control my income, which by the way, network marketing taught me. And I want to make a difference in people's lives. And he looked at me and he said, welcome to commercial insurance. And that's what he did. And so when I got out of college, I applied for the company that he was at. I fought, actually it was about a year, my junior to senior year, to be the first college grad that ever hired. I sold them on how I was uniquely qualified to come in without 10 years of sales experience. And I got in there and I was like, these guys were right. I shouldn't be here. And basically they talked about
commercial insurance. So you're selling
basically
what type of insurance to what type of customer?
Basically calling construction companies, manufacturing, selling property, casualty, work comp.
Got it.
And to be honest, you're talking to the best people, the CEOs and the CFOs, but you're talking to them about the thing they want to talk about the least.
The least.
And to be honest, if you're in commercial insurance and you love what you do, man, God bless you. But there is very little difference you can make in that industry outside of just loving it because it's so price driven. I spent 3.5 years, 2 years in the corporate world for Marsh McLennan Agencies, a year and a half on my own doing it. Apparently I'm a slow learner. And about 3.5 years in, my dad sat me down. He goes, Trey, you're one of the happiest people I know, and you look miserable. Yeah. And I was. In fact, I was so miserable.
Good on your dad.
Oh, man, I've got a great father. Anybody with my dad would be a winner. But I was so miserable for 3.5 years. I had about a near perfect girlfriend, as great as you can get. Should have married her on week 3. Took me 3.5 years because I always thought I have to have this castle before I bring in the princess. If you were to ask me what's the number one mistake most entrepreneurs make, is we think that getting married, having a wife, and having kids is going to delay, slow down, or even stop our dreams. And the day I proposed, it took me 3.5 years. It took me getting out of commercial insurance. The day I proposed, it was the first time in my life that I went from chasing dreams and goals by myself to feeling like I was doing it with someone. So one of the things I'd say, and if you ever watched The Bachelor, Bachelorette, I know that sounds funny. You hear all these beautiful women, and they'll go, I dated this guy for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And they interview the guy, and the girl's like, he won't propose. And the guy's like, man, I don't have anything. I just want to be more stable. What I would say to that guy is if you want to build something great, marry the girl while you're poor and build it together.
Enroll her in the mission from day one.
Man, my wife would always say, I want to build it together. And I was like, no, I want you to come into the castle that I've built.
Right.
Huge mistake. And I would just say I had a lot of fear.
Driven by ego too.
Definitely driven by ego. So I had great people around me, told me not to do it. I did it. But when I made that transition and I no longer had the burden and the stress of doing something I didn't want to do, I proposed and my life got better.
What did you move to?
You know what I did? I had a really unique experience. So I sold my commercial insurance business.
Okay.
And I got to just pause. And one of the questions I ask everybody is if everything paid the same, what would you do?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, like I've got friends that own school bus companies. That might not be exactly what they'd pick, but they fell into their gifts and they're crushing it. And they love their day-to-day. What I knew is that I love helping people with money, but I also knew that I wanted to make a difference because my perspective of a financial advisor was somebody that called friends and family and sold high commission products. I found a friend that was in a model where it was all fee-based. They did what was best for people. They offered all of these services and they helped them at a crucial time in their life, right when their income stopped. And now they're going to live off these investments they've trained themselves their whole life never to touch.
And this is the difference between being a fiduciary and not, correct?
So there's two models. There's a broker model. Basically, the broker model says, Travis, I can't sell you anything that would intentionally harm you. And there's good people in that model, typically a lot of high commission, high fee products.
Okay.
The fiduciary model is the model where that licensing says, I can't recommend anything to you until I know your expenses, your assets, your goals. I've looked at the full menu of options and I've presented what's best to you based on everything paying about the same.
So there's a few books that I always recommend to people when it comes to money, where like there's just certain books that I think everybody should read.
100%.
And that goes for the health space, that goes for philosophy, happiness, and maybe I should probably put together a master list sometime of like each field and then the top books I'd recommend.
I like that.
But one of them in finances and becoming more financially literate is Unshakable by Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
And it basically was like a synopsis book of Money Master the Game, which was like a 900-page encyclopedia that he put together after interviewing the world's leading hedge fund managers and the richest people on the planet, the Warren Buffetts and the Ray Dalias and people like that. And that was the first time that I heard the term fiduciary. And I would have classified myself as somebody who was interested in money. I never heard what it was. So can you break that down a little bit more for somebody who's listening that's like, I'm looking at a couple of different financial advisors. Why should I choose somebody who has this versus this?
Yeah. So I would say, on my team, so it's kind of funny, all of my licensing is insurance, safe investments, and then I've got a team of fiduciaries on my staff that handle all the investments.
Okay.
So you want to work with somebody like anything that I do, it falls underneath my business partner's licensing, the fiduciary license, and he spends his day picking investments, tax planning, distributions. But one of the things I'd say to most people is most people sit down with an advisor and they look at him and they go, can I trust this guy across the table? And because people don't know anything about investments and they're not going to take the time to become an expert, what they're looking for is somebody they can trust. And one of the things that I would tell everybody is there's a lot of good, moral people that maybe even go to church with you, but they're in what I would call as a bad model, where they're incentivized to sell you not what's best for you, but what gets them paid. So think about it this way. If you're young and you're getting started, even if you're a high incomer, let's say you make $250,000 a year, and you go sit down with an advisor who's local or a buddy that's getting started, they can recommend that you start investing in the S&P 500 or the stock market. But if you're starting at 10 or 50 grand, they're not making almost anything on that. So what are they often going to recommend you? Whole life insurance, disability, IULs. And what I would say is, well, some of those things are a fit for some people. Those are high fee, high commission products. So even if you met somebody at a club and you think you have the same values, the same core values, you trust that person, one of the things I would say is ask them, how are you paid based on this recommendation? What a lot of people don't know is on those IULs, on those life insurance policies, if you had to guess, and maybe Travis, what do you think the average commissions are on some of those products?
Based on the whole term of the policy?
Most of it's based on the first year. So let's say you buy a policy and you're funding it at $3,000 a month, $36,000.
Yeah.
What would you guess the commission on that is? Just percentage.
Oh, I would say close to 100%.
80 to 110%.
Yeah.
So think about this. You're looking for life insurance, and I have two options. One that's going to pay me, in that example, $36,000 up front, or a term life policy that's going to pay me $2,000 up front.
Yeah.
Am I more likely to recommend one over the other?
Yes.
You are, especially if you're building a business and you're trying to support your wife and family.
Sure, yeah.
You might have even convinced yourself
that it's the better option.
Yeah. So here's what I would say. I was at a seminar not too long ago, got done speaking in front of 350 financial advisors on how we've built what we've built, and the Lord's really blessed it. We've done our part. He did his. But this guy came up to me mid-60s and he goes, I've been in the insurance world for 27 years. How much life insurance or whole life insurance are you selling your clients that are in retirement? And I said, we almost do none, because our clients have $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $4 million, $5 million bucks. They no longer need it. And he said, if you partner with me, he goes, I'll come in, I'll sell it, I'll get you trained, we'll split the commission. He goes, I just had a client, they took $400,000 from their IRA retirement account. They put it into this life insurance policy that's going to give them tax-free income for the rest of their life. And my commission was $380,000.
Gosh.
So here's what I said, Travis. I go, that sounds amazing. I said, would you do me a favor? I said, how long have you been in the business? He said, about 27 years. I said, would you send me 3 of those policies that are 5 to 10 years old or older, where your client has pulled tax-free income and they've had a good return over 5, 10 or more years. You know what he said to me, Travis? He said, well, the old policies didn't work the way they thought they would, but the new ones will.
He fully bought in. He bought in. Yeah.
So think about this, 27 years of selling these products. He didn't have 3
examples
that he could show me where it benefited the client.
Yeah.
So what I always tell everybody is when you sit down with somebody, insurance, investments, nobody likes to ask. Ask the hard question.
Yeah.
Hey, Travis, how are you paid based on this recommendation? And if they don't give you a real answer, or if they tell you somewhere around 1%, run. Because in our industry, people will say, oh, your fees are somewhere around 1.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, especially for young people, they're significantly higher. And it's a lie that agents and advisors in the industry have settled on to feel good.
Yeah. And even if it were these smaller numbers, the problem is when you're taking money out of a retirement account like that, and correct me if I'm wrong, by the way, you're the expert. The problem is it sounds like it's a small fee, but these small fees, 1%, 2%, 3%, when taken against your ability to experience the magic that is compound interest, it can drastically decrease that total amount over a 20, 25, 30, 35 year period, right? Like these fees, like it's just like, 2%, whatever. But if you take 8% compounding and make it 5.5% compounding,
significant,
then all of a sudden you're talking a difference of like hundreds of thousands of dollars, potentially millions of dollars, depending on how the principal of the account.
Well, and the best way I would say to explain it to somebody that doesn't understand investing yet is go to Google, plug in mortgage calculator, plug in the balance of your house at 3% interest, 5 and 7. Everybody understands how it gets there because you're the borrower. But when you're the saver and investor, 2% doesn't sound like a lot to people. But if you look at 2% on $1 million, that's $20,000 a year that you're giving up. Now, what I would say is I do think most people should have an advisor.
Without compounding.
That's without compounding, yeah. That's just simple.
Right.
Yeah. I do think most people need an advisor because a lot of people don't want to become an advisor themselves.
Sure.
Now, I have a ton of people that I've met that are engineers, and they geek out on it, and they do a great job.
Spreadsheets on spreadsheets.
They've got so many spreadsheets. I'm like, I think they're better than me. They should keep managing their money. But I would say 90% of people that I meet, paying a reasonable, fair fee, you're going to get better returns with people managing your assets. But what most people don't know is those big broker houses, a lot of the ones where people are door knocking, your fees are averaging 2 to 3%, and it's significant. You shouldn't be, no matter what, you shouldn't be over more than 1.25%. If you've got over $500,000 invested, if you're paying over 1, in my opinion, you're being robbed.
Yeah. If you go to one of those, even ChatGPT will do it now. It's super easy to find out some of these things. Like if you just go to ChatGPT and say like, here's how much money I have. What does it look like compounding over 30 years at an average annual return of 10%? What does it look like compounding over 30 years at an average annual return of 7.5%?
Right.
And look at the delta there. It's going to be significant, like more than you think that it is.
Yeah.
Because it destroys your ability to compound that investment.
Yeah, 100%.
For somebody listening who's like, okay, this is all great, but I don't have any wealth to begin with. How do I get some of that? Where do you advise people to start on this?
You know what's interesting? So I'm a financial advisor. So everybody would expect me to say your best investment is your home. Your best investment is the stock market. I am in the financial world. I'm also in the leadership and coaching business. Now, what I'll tell you is everybody's in the leadership and coaching business right now. But if you're paying somebody that has no fruit in their life from building a real business, run as fast as you can. My opinion on that, and there's exceptions, but there's very few, is a lot of the gurus are people saying, I built this amazing organization and I sold it off and now I'm just coaching. Almost everybody that says that is lying because if they were still crushing it, there is way less money in leadership and coaching than there is in real businesses outside of Tony Robbins, the guru, right?
Sure.
So what I would say is if you want somebody in leadership and coaching, find somebody who has real fruit today. And it's not like they climbed that mountain, they're still climbing the mountain. So here's my answer on building wealth. Number one is I would say you got to get stable. So here's my answer on that.
Okay.
If you have a spouse, your wife and my wife, they want stability even more than they want success. I think we should own homes. Now, I don't think it's the best investment. I think it's great for your security. I think it's great for your peace. Outside of your home for your family, giving your wife the peace, in my opinion, the number one thing you can invest in is a skill set. Before you invest in the stock market, before you buy more real estate, I mean, how many people are barely making it and they watch HGTV and they go buy a property? And I see it all the time, Travis, and it looks easy.
Yeah.
And they think that real estate is literally just an investment.
Yeah.
And they don't realize it's a new business, industry, and skill set that you have to learn. Before you go invest in some guru's real estate program, look to see what your giftings are. If you're an engineer, invest in a certification that gives you more income.
Yes.
If you're a financial advisor, in my opinion, go work for one of the top wealth managers. Get paid to learn instead of being the CEO of nothing.
Get paid
how
to
many
learn, yeah.
How many young people do we see? They would literally rather be the CEO of something with no revenue than make 150 or 200 grand or $250,000 being the associate for somebody that matters.
Right.
Get
right.
over the title.
Yeah.
Go learn from somebody, invest in yourself, whatever you do, what certifications, what things do you need to learn that are going to pay you more? Because the number one wealth builder is more income.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%, dude. I'm glad we're having this conversation because, yeah, at the end of the day, like if you're like, okay, well, I got disciplined with my finances, we made a budget and we have $300 a month that we can save. Like what should I invest in? You know, it's like, the answer is you.
Right.
The answer is nothing. Like you should not be putting that into anything except for your ability to make that delta $3,000 a month instead of $300 a month.
Right.
Or 5,000 or 10,000 or 25,000. Like you need a significant boost in your ability to go earn more income, which is always going to be back in your knowledge, your skill set, or your connections. Like I put it in two groups, your competence or your connections.
Right.
Like you need to be investing that money back into you at this point, nothing else.
Right.
Because that if you can increase that delta, then that's where like the real power lies.
I would say too, so my business coach's name is Keith Kraft. He's out of Dallas, Texas. And he has a great question. He says, who helps you think better about the things that you're already thinking about? Pause. Most people don't have anybody in their life that they're going to for wisdom. In my opinion, everybody needs a coach. And by the way, typically that coach isn't your family member that loves you more than anybody else.
Correct.
You need to listen to people that have the fruit in their life that you want. And then the follow-up to who's helping you think better about the things you're already thinking about is the effectiveness question, which Pastor Keith would say, or Keith Kraft would say, how is that working out for you? What I would tell people, and I can say this as somebody that all of the income that I've received from leadership and coaching, which is 6 figures, by the way, I've given to nonprofit work. I'm not doing it for more income today. I'm doing it because I believe in it.
Yeah.
In 2021, I joined a leadership and coaching group, started paying $2,000 a month. And I was making a couple $100,000 a year, but at $2,000 a month, it was pretty significant. $24,000, it was not much less than my mortgage.
Right.
And I remember thinking, I don't know how this is going to be worth it, but I feel like I need to get in a room of people that are better than me. And over those next 4 years, my income went up 2x, 3x, 4x. And I've got a business partner that's very much an engineer. And he would say, well, how do you know what percentage of your income has gone up because of the mastermind?
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, man, I can't tell you if it's 20% or 85%. I just know that I did that and it's working.
Yeah.
So what I would say is find somebody who looks like they actually care about people. Invest in yourself. Get in a room of people that are sharper than you, that are better than you. One of the things my business coach always says is greatness has one of 3 responses. Either it inspires you, it intimidates you, or it makes you jealous. Get in a room of people that are greater than you, that are better than you, and choose to be inspired and go, if that guy can do it, I can do it too.
Here's the ultimate mindset shift that changed everything for me when it came to being willing to invest in those types of things, because it's so counterintuitive when you're first getting started. It can feel like you feel so much resistance to being like, okay, I'm going to invest into myself to the tune of thousands of dollars. It just sounds so it's just like, what else could I use that money for? Like I could, this is my mortgage
What else
payment.
is practical?
Let me get a car. Like we're
Right.
talking real money. The biggest mindset shift for me was realizing that the people whose lives I wanted to emulate the most had one core difference with me. And that was that they valued time over money.
Mm-hmm.
And most people value money over time.
100%.
That one mindset shift is what allowed me to be able to start investing, because I started realizing when I paid somebody else money, it compressed the time that it took me to learn something.
Yeah.
Like I could you learn it on your own? Yes. 100%, hands down, yes, you can.
Yeah.
The question is, how long will it take you to learn that thing on your own?
Right.
And the answer is, we don't know.
Right.
It could take you 3 months, but it could take you 3 years.
Right.
And if we're talking 3 years of my time,
right.
Like
what's the cost of that?
Right. How much money am I losing by just not giving this $3,000 to this person who's already figured out this problem 10 times over,
right,
and can help me solve it in a matter of weeks instead of me trying to figure it out on my own and taking 3 years to do it?
Yeah.
It's like, what is your ego too big for you to sit back and realize that you don't have to do this thing alone?
Right.
And by the way, if you're starting and like the thousands of dollars thing sounds like too much, and maybe it is too much for you, start with a book.
Man, 100%.
YouTube, a podcast, just like this.
Right.
It's never been easier to access information. And when you start consuming a volume of information, you're like, well, how do I know what information is good, what information is bad? Well, I love this quote from Michio Kaku, who's a renowned theoretical physicist. He says, correct ideas only come from interacting with incorrect ideas.
Oh.
And when you consume a volume of information, you can start to develop the muscle of parsing through information, and you start working on this critical thinking factor that will help you to start being like, you know what, that sound like my BS meter just went up on that. That doesn't sound right to me. But you're not going to get there if you don't just start doing it. So it might look like a book for you right now. If you're dead broke, you're $20K in debt, you probably shouldn't go drop $50,000 on a mentor.
Well, but I get guys that call me, they go, man, I want to be in the mastermind, I want to do the coaching, but my wife won't let me. And they want to put it on her a lot of the times. And here's what I'll say. Do you know why your wife won't let you take a little bit of risk?
Because she's not confident you can get it back.
And they look at me and I go, because you haven't stacked any wins for her.
Right.
I go, all you've shown her is that you've made decisions that have cost you.
Yep.
If you want to be able to take risk and have a great marriage, get your emergency savings up a little bit so your wife has some peace. I've got a buddy, incredible story. I'll keep it really short. Excuse me. He was a doctor in California, and he basically was stuck in a job making 100 and something a year. And he went home to his wife and he said, I'm so sick of this. I can't do it another day. Are you okay if we sell our home, downsize to something, save up for a couple of years so we can open our own practice so we can have a better life? Long story short, quit his job. Not only did they not just go to a smaller apartment, they did like a room share where their door was not a door. It was like a piece of sheetrock that they would slide over the living room entrance where their bedroom was.
They're living in a hostel, basically.
They were literally living in a hostel, basically. And after a couple years of saving up all of this money, he got invited to a mastermind, and he went home to his wife and he goes, hey, it's $50,000. And it was like a third of everything that they had saved.
Yeah.
And he said, are you okay with me investing in this? I think this is what's going to open the door for our increase. And she looked at him. Think about it. So it wasn't just him that sacrificed.
Mm-hmm.
How many women are going to live in a house where you share a kitchen and a bathroom? And she believed in him because he had stacked his wins and said, whatever you feel like we need to do, go do.
Yeah.
Paid $50,000 for the mastermind. Like 6 months in, he meets a guy, finds out his dream is to open up these men's practices all over. They become business partners. Today he's driving a McLaren, lives in a couple $1 million house. But the reason I say that is for him to have taken the risk.
Yes.
He had to stack some wins with his wife. So if you're complaining that you're stuck because your wife or maybe even your kids have put you in a spot or you should have delayed that, you're the problem, man. Get stable, put some money away, build some of your wife's confidence in you, and then take calculated risk. And the last thing on that I would say is don't make decisions alone. Run your decisions by people that are having success. And even if you disagree, do what they say. Because what most people do is they're not looking for advice. They're looking for somebody to agree with them.
To justify their behavior. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's funny you say that because when I switched to being like full-time online, I was doing door-to-door sales at the time, and we kind of talked about this before.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about that space is that it's 100% commission. You eat what you kill.
Right.
So it gave me the freedom and flexibility to kind of control my own schedule and then increase my income on certain months and then work on my side thing on other months where I didn't need as much income or whatever. But when I made the decision to go full time, it was like a 60, 75, somewhere in there % cut and pay, where I had finally started learning how to make a little bit of money on the side from the podcast and the online business. And I basically had that conversation with my wife, and I was just like, if I'm going to be able to make this work, I need to give it 100% of my attention instead of splitting my focus between this door-to-door thing and this thing.
Yes.
So we were living in a nice spot in Vegas at the time. Great backyard, great community, pool, all that stuff. And we downsized from this like 3,600 square foot home with a pool. And we moved in with my brother-in-law who had a 2-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
And we took one of the bedrooms in the apartment. But it took our monthly expenses, down just from the living expenses, which at that house was, close to $4,000 a month with utilities and all the other things. It took it down to $550 for utilities and rent, everything included. But,
hey, I kind of like that today, actually.
What's that?
$550 a month for my mortgage.
Hey, you know what? I'd be stoked out of my mind.
Sorry, yeah.
But yeah, to your point though, it's like I wouldn't have been able to be the single decision. I had and to give her major props, she's always been willing to support me. But she also saw that thing. She was like, because I asked her a few times, not really recently, but within the last 2 or 3 years, like why she was just always okay with me doing crazy, stupid things.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, I just kind of always trusted that you were going to figure out how to make it work.
That's it.
And so when we made that decision, of course it's like less than ideal, but I don't even look back at that time as like oh man, those were rough times.
Right.
Like, I don't know. It's
part of the journey.
You do what you got to do, man. And if you have, it's hard enough in life to figure out what it is that you want. But if you're lucky enough to be one of the people who's figured that out,
so thankful.
Relentlessly pursue that thing because it is worth it.
Yeah.
Just the pursuit of that thing will bring you more enjoyment than the attainment of a thing that you don't want.
Well, that's the key though, is you have to find something where you love the journey. And there's a ton of people that are hoping that the reward that they're going to get in the future is worth them hating their everyday.
Yeah.
You said 2 things really well, I think. You said number 1 is that your wife trusts you. She doesn't trust you because she loves you. As silly as that sounds, she trusts you because you stacked your wins. Mm-hmm. The other thing I would say is, how often do you go on Facebook or LinkedIn and there's like a 23 or even a 33-year-old kid and he's like singer, actor, dancer, entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. You hear guys like Alex Hormozy, right? So like in the entrepreneurship world, he's probably the guy right now, at least our age.
Yeah.
And he said something really well that I always believed, but he said it in a way that I think is important. He said, everybody always talks about how on average a millionaire has 7 income streams.
Yeah, yeah.
But what nobody talks about is how they focused on one until they had significant income and then they diversified, right?
Right.
So if you're somebody and you go, man, I'm so frustrated. I've been grinding forever. I've been putting in all the work. And if you're living with a high level of frustration and anxiety, we talked about before the podcast, focus and win in one thing first.
Yeah.
Like even if you're passionate about 7 things, get good at saying no and go, I'm not going to focus on a second thing till I hit 150, 250, 400, 750.
Right.
Pick the number and go, I'm not looking at anything else until this thing that I love doing every day that actually has potential makes me a winner, and then I'm going to diversify.
Absolutely. And one thing to point out there too is that typically when millionaires are diversifying and have 7 income streams, the other 6 are somehow vertically integrated with main thing. They're not like, this is my main thing, and then these other 6 income streams are in wildly different industries doing completely. I didn't get really good at, owning a restaurant, and then I went and got into plumbing or whatever. It's like I decided to do food
complement your first thing.
Yes, exactly.
I fully believe that.
Yeah, it's much easier to stack because it's industry adjacent. I understand the space. It's completely within my field of expertise.
Yeah.
And it goes along with my current client base. And now I can add this other thing in without taking too much time to figure out how to do it because I already kind of know how to do it. Then I have the free cash flow to be able to hire somebody whose expertise is doing that thing, and they can help me build it to infinity. Right. And then they can do that several times over. But yeah, they look at the result, but they didn't look at how they achieved the result in order to be able to be diversified in all these different things.
I think the other thing is when I did commercial insurance, where I hated my job every day, I learned something powerful. Is I worked with a lot of small business owners also. And I mean, in the economy, small business owners are like the backbone. And in my opinion, I don't think anybody works harder than a small business owner.
Yeah.
As I started working with a lot of the small business owners, I also quickly found the reason they stayed small is because they never hired good people. One of the things that I got really lucky and I'm really thankful is in college, one of my best friends, I made him my business partner. He made me his business partner. And it was because we had opposite strengths. Growing up, my dad would always say, if you're strong at something, invest all your time into it. If you're weak at something, don't take that 1 and get it to a 4. Take your 7 and get it to a 9.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's happened in my business is people go, man, you're young, you're 36 and your business is crushing it. And I know that I would not be crushing it if I didn't have a business partner that was great in all the things I'm terrible in.
Yeah.
And it sounds like I'm joking, but what I would say, and people that are close to me know this, is I'm not good at that many things. But the 3 things that I do in my office that produce revenue, that keep clients happy, and that lead our marketing are the only things I'm good at. And my business partner and our employees are better than me at everything else. So the other thing I would say is quit trying to do everything.
Yeah.
Partner with somebody, and you get all these knuckleheads that they're like, I'm not giving up 100%. Man, sometimes it's so much better to own 60% of a basketball than 100% of a marble. And so one of the things that I would just tell people is if you want to do something great, you're going to have to become a great leader. You're going to have to align people in your weaknesses if you want to hit your goals.
Yeah, I look at it like this. You ever create a player playing video games? You create a player in NBA 2K or something like that. And you can only attribute a certain amount of total points to stamina, 3-point shooting, rebounding, height, whatever. You can only attribute a certain amount of points.
Right.
Well, we're all born with a certain amount of points in a certain category.
Right.
Stop focusing on taking your, level 26 to level 42.
Yeah.
And start focusing on taking your level 76 to 99.
Right.
And max that out because it's the thing that you already have a head start in doing that thing.
Yeah.
You don't need to go improve all of these things that you're bad at.
Right.
You need to get really, really good at the things you're already pretty good at.
Yeah.
And that skill will make you more money than worrying about focusing on I'm pretty weak in this area. I should probably work on that. It's like, well, no, you can find somebody who was at a 76 in that area.
Right.
And you can hire them.
100%.
And then they can turn into a 99 in that area. And then that's how you cover all categories with the 99.
Yeah.
It's impossible for you to have the 99 in every single category. It's never going to happen. You don't have enough time.
Yeah.
You don't have enough expertise. Your personality is wired differently than somebody else's.
Yeah.
If somebody's like that, they're the trillionaires of the world. You know what I mean? Those are the people that are anomalies, and you can't duplicate that type of success, at least not, with any sort of degree of certainty.
Right.
So work on the things you're really good at. I love you brought that point up.
I think too, one of the things I tell people all the time, 2 pieces is, one is if you want to be great, don't open an LLC and start a business. Go work for somebody and become that associate. Give them 3 to 5 years of your life. So when I sold my commercial insurance business, I was the business owner. I couldn't wait to go be an employee again. I was like, man, consistent paychecks, health insurance. I go home at night and I don't have to check on if people are working.
Yeah.
This is the dream. What I told the gentleman I went to go work for, one of my buddies, is I said, if you hire me, I said, I'll give you 2 or 3 years of my life. I'm not even going to set a goal other than to make your dreams and goals happen. And he came back and he goes, I want to hire you, but my concern is that you're going to leave and be the competition. And he wasn't wrong. And I told him he wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
But I said, if I'm as good at this as I think I'm going to be, and as you think I might be, then either give me an opportunity to be a partner, or let me make you number one for the next 3 years. Everybody should do that. Everybody should say, hey, I'm going to go be a nobody with a no title, and I'm going to invest 2, 3, 4, 5 years with whoever's the best at the thing I want to be the best at. And then I'm either going to earn my spot or I'm going to go make my own way.
So underrated, man.
So
Especially
underrated.
for young people. They're so caught up in the chase at 24 years old to be the person driving the Lambo or the BMW or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's you might have the perception of being ahead now.
Right.
But the person in their 20s who prioritizes learning over earning will be the person in their 30s who out-earns everybody else.
I teach that. Your learning years come before your earning years.
Yeah.
I'm curious. So in our world, everybody talks about what role college has today. And I have a strong opinion, but I'm curious what your opinion is on that.
Yeah, man, I go back and forth on this one. I ask a lot of people about it too. Guys, I try to get perspectives from people who never went to college and then people who went to Ivy Leagues and try to figure out, where to place it. And especially for my own kids, now I have a 5-year-old and a 4-year-old, and it's in my head, like, man, do I want to save for college for them? Like, I don't even know if I want them to go into college. Like, so I'm constantly thinking about this.
Yeah.
Where I've landed is that it's absolutely necessary for certain career fields. So if that's a career field you want to go into, it's a requirement, and
Right.
it should be.
If you want to be a doctor,
I
you have
don't
to go
want
to
I
college.
don't want an uncertified doctor cutting me open. Doctors, engineers, things like that. But I think for most people, they would be better off avoiding the debt that comes along with student loans and working for somebody first in that field for a period of time, because you don't even know if you want to do that. The immense amount of pressure that we put on 17-year-olds to declare a major and know what they want to do for the rest of their life, and then go saddle themselves with $200,000 in student loans that you can't even file bankruptcy to get out of.
Right.
Like, it's crippling to those young people's future, and it makes them feel like they're behind if they don't know the answer to that question. And the bottom line is, you probably won't know the answer to that question until you're like 40. So stop putting this pressure on yourself. If you think this is something that you want to do, go work for somebody in that field and earn while you learn. And then once you're done working there, maybe you can go to college at that point. But I think most career fields would be better served with internships or apprenticeships than they would be by going and getting a traditional degree.
Yeah. And I agree with you. There's no blanket statement, right? So like, I'll never forget a buddy of mine in college. He came up to me and he goes, hey, I just started dating this girl. You know who she is? We'll just say her name is Alice. And he goes, what do you think? And I said, well, let me tell you what I think. I said, I think she's a really cute girl, but she told me last week as a dance major that she's not sure she's coming back next semester because she has $100,000 of school loans. And I said, in my opinion, run before you fall in love. And he looked at me and he was like, what? I go, she has $100,000 of school loans and she's a dance major.
Yeah.
So here's what I said to him. I said, as cute as she is, as sweet as she is, the girl in the dorm room next to her has $10,000 of school loans and she's studying to be an attorney. So what I would say is that depending on what you're doing, plays a big part in that. For me, college isn't necessarily about the things that you learn while you're there, but I do think that for a lot of people, it's 4 or 5 or 6 key years of discovering who you are.
Sure.
And in my opinion, for 80 to 90% of people, who you become in college and who you hang out with is going to determine who you are for the rest of your life.
This is the biggest argument to me for getting into a good school is just the network that you can leave with.
100%.
That's what's going to ultimately lead you to success. It's not going to be the things that you learned. And a lot of the things that are being taught now, unless there's something that like stands the test of time, like philosophy or something like that, they're outdated by the time you graduate school. Like the thing you're learning in your marketing class, like this semester, by next semester is not going to work anymore.
Things are changing fast.
Yeah. So I more or less agree with that for sure. Is that it's going to be the other things that you gain from having that experience about being on your own for the first time, learning how to manage your own schedule, show up to class on time, complete assignments, do projects, meet people,
100%.
be social. All those things are the things that are going to benefit you more than the actual things that you're learning.
It's about
class.
habits, discipline, and who you connect with. I graduated from Oral Roberts University. So I went from Minnesota to Tulsa, Oklahoma in 2011. And my business partner was worth my tuition just because of the business we've built.
Oh, so you met him in college?
We met in college.
Okay.
We met our freshman year, 2007.
Yeah.
And we joked that, I think it was 2008, we talked about, because we were in Tulsa, Oklahoma, so it got hot in the summers. We talked about opening a snow cone shack together. And it turns out wealth management's more profitable, in case you were wondering. But I wouldn't have that partnership had I not been there.
Sure.
And so that's kind of going back to where you're at, because there's a lot of studies that talk about the success of our kids. Mm-hmm. And you would think, and I would have thought, that the number one thing had to do with how we parent them. I still want to think that, but all the statistics say the number one determining factor of how successful our kids are is their peer group. Mm. What neighborhood were you in? What schools did they go to? What kind of people did they hang out with? And I think it was the same for me in college. So when I look back, not only is my business partner somebody that I met at a university that has the same core values, the same faith, puts people over profits, I've got about 15 other people that I connect with, if not every other week, every month, that have become great business connections. They've stayed quality friends. Now, what I will tell you is not everybody that went to ORU has done that, right? So it's not just where you go.
Sure.
It's who you are. It's, are you intentional? So if you're not doing college, what I would say, and it's not a fit for everybody, is those 4 years after high school, I strongly think whoever you spend time with, you're choosing what your life is going to look like.
Mm. Select that circle carefully.
Yeah. And you and I both know, I can't remember if it was Zig Ziglar who said it first, but you and I become like the 3 to 5 people we spend the most time with.
Yeah, I think it's Jim Rohn. Full circle conversation.
Full circle. So what I would say is I've always known that. What I didn't connect is you don't just do that one time.
Yeah.
You do it again. You do it again. It doesn't mean that you have to leave everybody behind.
Correct.
But if you're somebody that's growing and developing and becoming, one of the most disappointing things is that not everybody wants to be great. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean it in like an ego way, but not everybody says, I want to get better every day.
Right.
Even some of the people that I love the most.
Yeah. And it's neither good nor bad.
No, it's not good or bad.
Right.
But if I want to get better every day and I'm hanging out with 3 people that don't, eventually I'm not going to want to be better every day.
Correct.
And so what I've found is every 3 to 5 years, I'm looking for at least one new friend that's at an upper level. And it's not just financially, in the way that they live, their discipline, their morals, that challenges me to get better. So I would just say to people, keep leveling up.
Yeah.
Don't just do it one time. We tell our kids, be careful who you hang out with. And a lot of times we forget it as adults.
Well, dude, this has been a fun conversation. I can always tell when they're good ones when the time just flies by. So let's move into the last segment here, and then I'll get you out of here. Just quick random questions, quick random answers. You ready?
Yes.
What profession other than your own do you think that it would just be fun to master?
If I didn't do what I did, which is wealth management and personal development, I would either be in real estate or the mortgage industry.
If you could sit on a park bench with someone, past or present, and chat for an hour, who would it be?
John Maxwell, because he's the king of leadership.
Oh, great. Well, go back and listen to John Maxwell's episode on this podcast because he is the king of leadership. What is your go-to pump-up song?
Man, it's really rare I listen to any music. My go-to worship is it's a worship song.
Okay.
Think how sad this is, by a guy named Stephen Furtick. Yeah. And it's called Talking to Jesus. And when I listen to it, I'm working out and I'm like crying. Everybody listening is like, who is this guy?
How do you like to consume information best? Books, audiobooks, blogs, podcasts, YouTube videos, newsletters, anything else?
Yeah. So what I've found is it's not about reading books, right? Someone said to me recently, they go, I read 24 books last year. In my opinion, the goal isn't to read a lot of books. It's to find a book that you implement.
Yeah.
So what I do is I no longer just read, I study. So I listen to audiobooks. But what I have to do to grow is I love a physical paper copy book. I go and highlight it, and I no longer move on to a second book until I've read that book at least 3 times, unless it was a bad book.
Yeah, I love that. I've heard some advice recently that was like, it's like dating or like friendships. You're going to go wide until you find the ones you want to go deep with. And
100%.
it's like, so if you don't have those books yet, then maybe read 25, 30 books a year.
Right.
But then find the ones that are like, that one was really good. And then do that one like 3 or 4 more times.
Right.
What's a book that you'd recommend to the audience that everybody should read?
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of just core values. So whether you're a person of faith or you're not a person of faith. So there's a book by Mark Rutland, Dr. Mark Rutland, and it's called Character Matters. And what I love about it is in the business world, a lot of people think that you have personal ethics at home and a different set of ethics in the workplace. And it really describes that there's no such thing as business ethics, which is a John Maxwell quote. But this book really drives home that you have to decide who you're going to be, and it has to be the same place at home as you are in the workplace, or you're going to have an inconsistent and an unhappy life.
Love it, dude. As we get everything wrapped up here, where can everybody go to connect with you more?
Yeah, if you're on social media, Trey C. Peterson. Otherwise, my website, gwealth.com/ATF. You're going to see myself, my business partner, all the information on wealth management and everything that I do. Travis, thank you for inviting me on the show. Great to be with you.
Yes, sir. At Trey C. Peterson to get more from Trey. You're going to want to check out some of the financial advice that he puts out there. He's one of the people that's doing it the right way. So go check out some of the stuff he's putting out there. Everybody else listening, tuning in, watching. Remember that money only solves your money problems, but it is a little bit easier to solve the rest of your problems with some money in the bank. So let's solve that problem first here on the Travis Makes Money podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. Peace out.